Okay, it's day 119, and this is part 3. And so I want to do a little thought experiment now. Let's say you were running an operation here in Northern Virginia called Operation Cassandra. I've done several films about Operation Cassandra. You can see over the year and a half I've been following this story, right? So there's lots of information out there that you can go look at. Even before this, you can look at car theft ring, or you can look at drug ring or a Juan Contra. You'll see hundreds of videos about that. So you can kind of catch up with, hey, if I had a $200 million a month drug ring, let's just say it's you. Well, it would have been great if in about 2009 you would have fell into a whole bunch of land, let's say in Faisalabad, where 12 farmers all died simultaneously. Hey, that allows you to get USAID money. Maybe there'll be a flood. And now you can start growing opium. Or, better yet, you can build hospitals which can then process opium at night to generic drugs, let's say. So let's say you're making quarter-weight drugs and half-weight drugs. Totally legal, of course. There wouldn't be anything illegal about this operation. Now, let's say you had friends. Let's say you had friends and you had worked in the Port of Karachi. You could put those on a diplomatic container, okay, that could come into the United States and they can't look at it. Wouldn't that be great if you had friends in the UAE and UAE shipping, where you could just say, hey, you're not using your diplomatic container this month. Can I put all my, quarter weight and half weight legal drugs on it? That would be great, wouldn't it? And I have friends back in Virginia, remember, because I'm running a Operation Cassandra under color of law, and they're all looking at this port through a little television, right? So this is great because either I can ship it that way, I can ship it with diplomatic containers from my friends at the UAE, or I can ship it with my other friends at the FBI. I got plenty of those that are shipping stuff from Kazakhstan. They're shipping uranium. I could just ship it on the bottom. So I got two ways of getting the drugs here. So now it's here. Well, now how am I going to distribute it? Am I going to try to do this all by myself, or am I going to try to take advantage of an existing network? Now, I'm going to use this guy here, and I just picked out one person at random, and he has nothing to do with the drug business or anything like that, this Nicholas Jacob Cruz. But I'm going to use him as a symbol of somebody that you would want to target, okay? And I'm going to explain why that is. Now, somebody is associating this with some shooter down in Florida, so I'm not, now it's funny, he did go to Parkland, Florida. There is some overlap there, but I'm not using this person in that way at all. I'm just saying this is a person who I would target as a person to distribute my drugs for me, and I'll explain why. This Central Texas College here brings students like him from all over the world, okay, into this country, into near Fort Hood, and there are certain elements potentially within Fort Hood. If you get in that Odin brigade and you get in the right brigade in the Odin section, you again have some elements in there that could be trying to bring legal quarter-weight and half-weight drugs in. Now, I'm not saying legal half-weight and quarter-weight drugs aren't a good idea. Maybe that's the solution to the opioid crisis. Maybe the people involved here are thinking, hey, I know how to solve the opioid crisis. I'll bid for contracts and I'll put quarter-weight and half-weight drugs in, and that'll solve it. Then people won't be as addicted to drugs. They'll gradually get off drugs. Maybe that's what it is. So I would recruit people like him from Central Texas State who are getting associate's degrees down here in medical laboratory management, and I would get them into go into this Army QuarterMaster program. The Army quartermasters work with the Navy, right? So as these Navy ships are going all around the world, I could ship this and make sure it gets to this guy who's an Army quartermaster. Now, he may or may not know that the surgical gloves we're shipping or whatever contains my quarter-weight and half-weight drugs, right? But it's a built-in network, and I would want to cultivate a network of these folks. So that's why I think Central Texas College is important. And again, as I've always said, you don't have to have a lot of targets to compromise for your distribution network. Now, what I'm not saying is that this person's in any way involved in any kind of shootings, but let's say I wanted to recruit this person in the most effective way possible. If I brought in some really pretty girls from, let's say, the same place I'm getting the uranium, Kazakhstan, and these honeypots, let's say they were all working in some way for this largest oil company in Russia called Rosneft. Okay, well, some people might recognize that as the largest oil company in Kazakhstan, I'll change the name slightly and I'll call them Rostanets. I'll call them Rostanets. Now, I'm not saying this is what happened, but if you did bring the pretty girls there and you brought them to these college campuses and you started a little social networking and you started sending some nice white mischief texts back and forth, some sexy texts, you got a few guys to come over and maybe you had a few low light cameras and then you filmed them, and maybe it was not such a good thing because they were in Army programs like the Army QuarterMaster program, or maybe not. Maybe they don't need to be filmed at all. Maybe they just willingly will do whatever the Rostanet says. But that is what we're looking at here. That's what we're looking at, is that we have this side all worked out, the supply, getting everything here to Virginia, $200 million a month. Nobody seems to mind that. DEA, FBI, Bruce Orr seems to think that's just fine. Andy McCabe seems to think that's just fine. John Brennan, CIA, seems to think that $200 million a month is just fine. But we still have this problem of how do we get it to the college campuses for distribution? And if you did have folks like this working near college campuses, Army quartermasters, you could have a key link in the supply chain in your distribution. Then once you get it to the local guys, you can recruit anybody with your Rostanets. You can recruit people that are getting out of federal prison to sell your drugs. You can even give them a DEA, make them DEA informants to sell that. And the quartermaster here then, if you were to compromise them, almost becomes like a little quartermaster of a DimeMaster and a NickelMaster too, if you know what I mean by DimeMaster and NickelMaster. So you're a quartermaster and you're a DimeMaster and a NickelMaster. You could have these guys with sort of having their own territories, being DimeMasters and NickelMasters, if that makes any sense. Again, nothing to do with Nicholas Jacob Cruz. He's obviously a fine, upstanding young man, but I'm using him as a symbol of the person who you would recruit not only as a quartermaster, but as a DimeMaster and a NickelMaster.